All right, on this episode of Bowks Talking Bouts, excited to be talking to an individual set to compete and promote, as he is quite accustomed to doing, Rumble in the Cage 64, and that transpires on February the 18th. We've got a heavyweight clash, Matt Heim taking on Lee Meehan, and always good getting to have Lee on the show to talk fighting. How's it going there, man?
Well, it's going great.
Yeah, and I feel like you'd be happy about this fight kind of materializing because obviously targeted it for, the last Rumble show and seemed to, not pan out in pretty close proximity to the event. Like, what all went on there with that?
Yeah, for last show, again, he'd asked to fight me, and I said, that show will make it happen. And he was suspended by the Manitoba Commission, and he did all the stuff required to get the suspension lifted. And we sent everything into them, and they came back saying, oh, no, we want all this extra stuff done, which made no sense at all because his doctor said he was fit to fight. His knee was fine from the reason he was suspended. And so it was frustrating. That didn't happen. Wasn't any fault on Matt. The commission was just being difficult in my mind. And then he got cleared to fight in the Red Deer show on Havoc, and so it's just fine. So then now he's just getting his new medicals done for the Lethbridge fight card. So he's not suspended anymore, which is great, and we should be able to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like going back to the intro, just the fact that like even in the face of like your, competition getting canceled, it's like there's still cool aspects of the event on a promoter level. It would seem like I saw Dennis Kang was in the house, but on an even more like localized family level, I saw you had your granddaughter out, which seemed to be important to you. I mean, understandably, obviously, so it seemed to be a great night in a lot of regards.
Yeah, it's always fun, a fun night, and I love that, meeting new coaches from other gyms and having the old school guys coming out like Dennis Kang and stuff like that. Just great having them at the gym and, just having them part of the show, and they've got all this experience they bring to the table, and it's great for, the up-and-coming fighters get to, oh, man, there's this guy that fought in UFC and fought in Pride and all that stuff. They get to see, guys like that, legends of the sport, at my events as coaches and what they do with their athletes. So it's just kind of a full circle thing for me, is just being, what I'm trying to do with this sport is just give opportunities for fighters to get experience, fight at home. Guys from out of town get a chance to fight, so they get more prepared to fight on other shows. And, I'm always looking for the fights that are going to be entertaining. I don't care what guys' records are. I just want guys that show up, aren't hassle to deal with. The coaches, everybody, everyone knows what to do and how to behave, and, no headaches, and just show up, put on a great fight, win or lose, and entertain the fans and have fun and enjoy the process. So that's kind of what I look for. So.
Yeah, and I think Rumble always delivers in that regard. Like, I don't think there's ever been an event that hasn't been, filled with barn burners. So a great like culture created there with the live events, but also even, with the gym too. Like it seems like CMC is, having some great times lately. I mean, they've always, produced a lot of great high quality fighters, and there's just, consistent activity all throughout the country. But just seems like there's like a great kind of sense of momentum and a good vibe in the gym. Like it seems like Majed is doing great things as the unified champion and everything like that. So it just seems like a good vibe now.
Yeah, it's picking up again after the lockdowns and all that garbage we had to go through. Starting to rebuild the team again and get, okay, now there's competitions everywhere. We can start competing, whether it's grappling tournaments or Muay Thai events or MMA shows, right? Starting to guys realize, oh man, I can be busy fighting again. So it motivates guys to get back in the gym and train, and the new guys, to build their portfolio by just fighting amateur or pro, and just again enjoying the sport for what it's meant to be.
Yeah, for sure, and a great like collaborative kind of dynamic too. I mean, just like with like the Progressive Fighting Academy, like certain guys from over there going to fight at CMC and vice versa. Like it just seems like a great supportive kind of fight town in that sense. Like just kind of like looking at the greater good for the sport almost more so.
Yeah, and I think that's important. Whether it's a tournament in town or it's a fight card, I mean, we all try and help each other out. There's enough people for every gym in the country to be busy. We barely tap into like 1% of the market, even in Lethbridge, for martial arts training, and people that live here. So we all can expand greatly and still not interfere in each other's success as being business people. And I think it's important that we support each other whether it's a small grappling tournament or it's an event. It doesn't always work out. You have a fighter from another gym fight on your show, but we all know that we're welcome to fight on each other's shows if it works out, or any promotion that comes to town for that matter. I always want shows to do a good job so that everyone who comes out to a live event goes, oh man, it was great fights. Doesn't matter if it's my show, PFA shows, fight night, I don't care. Just do a good job so the fans are entertained and it's a good experience for the fighters. And I try and make my guys available to other promotions as well, whether it's BFL, Unified, whoever's doing a show, PFC out in Ontario. We want to be a part of the whole fight scene, and if we can accommodate a fight and make it happen, we definitely will put someone out there. So,
yeah, it was cool you shouted out PFC there. I kind of wanted to reference that a little bit because it seemed like he got in some work at Adrenaline MMA while Jamie Ingram was in town for his fight with Faisal Rahman. What was that whole experience like working at Adrenaline? I mean, such like a rich history in the London area and by proxy for Canadian MMA.
Yeah, it was great. I hadn't been to their gym before. Again, this goes way back. I trained under Boss Rutan, and Sean Tompkins trained with Boss, and so that's how I met Sean. Early, I had Sean come out and coach a couple of fighters that fought one of my very early Rumble in the Cage events, so that's how I got to know him personally, and we just had a connection, fellow Canadians, and we both trained under Boss Rutan, and so when he moved to Vegas, I went down and trained with him down there when I was in town, and so it was just a lot of fun to go, train at Adrenaline where, his students, grew up in the sport and now they have their own place and they're doing stuff. It was just fun to be there and see all the guys there and just get a chance to get some rounds in on the pads and stuff before my fight. So it was great.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of an interesting dynamic with this next fight. I mean, as we were kind of talking about, like, you and your opponent have a certain commonality. And as far as like both having fought Jag Buller relatively recently, like you being his first fight and your opponent being his second. And I guess I'm kind of curious because, like, leading into the fight when we were initially talking about it, it was almost like Matt Heim was looking at this as sort of like his swan song in a certain sense. Is that kind of still the plan with, like, you to kind of have this like as a send-off fight, or has he maybe amended that timeline a little bit, just, him having already fought another guy previously?
Yeah, we originally talked, he wanted to have one last fight, and I agreed to do, it's an MMA fight, but I agreed to stand and bang with him, and I'm not going to use any grappling or jiu-jitsu on him. And then he took that other fight, which was great, and so I think as long as he's healthy, he can keep fighting if he wants. He may, after this fight, say, yeah, I'm done now, I did what I want to do, or whatever. I never put that on somebody if they say they're retiring after a fight that, that could change their mind, which I'm fine with. If he wants to be his last fight, that's cool too. Again, it'll be fun to fight, and he'll have a good time in Lethbridge at the show, and we know we run it proper, and it's always a good experience for a fighter. So if that's going to be your last fight, I think that's a good way to go. But if he fights after that, then so be it. That's cool too. So
yeah, for sure. Like, whatever he wants to do. I guess I just thought to bring it up again to see if that was kind of, still the case there. But I do think that's interesting that you'd sort of, made that gentleman's agreement. Like, we were talking about that the last time, because you were saying sort of in the context of his record, like, anytime he would lose, it would, like, be a byproduct of kind of getting, like, taken to the mat and having, like, the, grappling part of his game kind of exploited a bit. So that's cool that you're, like, wanting to, go that route, because we've talked before about you wanting to always, like, engage people in, like, the area they're strongest.
Yeah. And, again, that's always fan-friendly, right? When you get two heavyweights throwing punches, I mean, that's entertaining, right? And the fans in Lethbridge are very educated, and so they get the ground game and they understand what's going on. So, it's not like they're booing because you go to the ground. It's still exciting to the fans because they get it, but, obviously it's still visually more entertaining when guys are trying to knock each other out, right? So I want to give the fans, the most bang for their buck, and so it's going to be fast and furious for sure.
Yeah, there's always so much great MMA action on these shows. I mean, it's, the longest running show in Canada for a reason. Like, we've talked about the dimensions of the cage and, like, the high finishing rate throughout, history as well. But I've also always loved like how much Rumble is willing to, indulge in like other martial arts. Like I remember like super boxing and some combat jujitsu on some other cards. Like now that we're kind of, back from a lot of the pandemic measures as we were talking about before, is there maybe plans to, integrate more of that in the future, or maybe mostly MMA kind of promotion in the near future, you'd say?
I like to do it all. I just, it kind of depends on the names I get in to fight. I have one of my guys is doing, amateur guys is doing I couldn't find an MMA fight, so he's doing a Muay Thai fight for this show, and so, I love it all. And if I have two guys that want to do combat jiu-jitsu, man, I'll put it on. If someone wants to do super boxing, and the other guy agrees to it, let's do it. And especially the reason I started super boxing was a transition for guys who are strikers who want to get into MMA that don't have their ground game yet, and they can kind of build that through that sport. And, they still get to fight. They got the small gloves on. It's entertaining. Once they get taken to the ground, they get stood back up after the 5 count. So it just kind of bridges that gap between the two styles, and it's still very fan friendly, very entertaining, and same as combat jits. The guys who do jitsu and they want to get into MMA, well, that's a good transition for them, right? They're striking on the ground now, not just sport jiu-jitsu. They're striking, they got to deal with that. So then they get more comfortable with that, and then maybe they go to full MMA. So I'm always open to whatever comes up. When we put our application in, we kind of put it in for all those forms of combat sport, because we have to decide beforehand what we're going to look for. It doesn't mean we'll get a combat jitsu or a super boxing match on a show, but I put my application in that they may be on the show. And that's just, again, just more fan base, more fighter availability from different gyms, from the Muay Thai gyms to just gyms to the MMA gyms, and I think that's just really, more of a broad spectrum of combat sport for the fans to be entertained by. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Just like so fun to see all those different permutations of combat sports. Like, are there any kind of, combat sports you have been wanting to promote in Rumble in the Cage that maybe you haven't got to as of yet that maybe you could see yourself pursuing in the future?
I had lots of guys request some bare-knuckle boxing, request bare-knuckle MMA, and I'm all for that. It's just a matter, again, will the commission allow it? What rule sets are they going to allow, not allow? That, the logistics of that. And then if it's worthwhile doing, like who's involved, the cost and everything like that. Is it worth it financially to a promotion to pull something like that off? And usually it is. I know one thing is I won't be doing any slap fighting. That's what I know for sure. So,
yeah, okay, good. Yeah, well,
I'm not opposed to it. I think people should be able to do whatever they want to do, right? If you want to arm wrestle, or you want to power lift, or you want to fight MMA, it's your choice, man. It's your body. You're putting yourself through it, and I get that. And if there's a market where people want to pay to watch people slap each other unconscious, then I say go for it. But it's not something I'm going to pursue on a business level. I think it's much more, you get knocked out in boxing, you get knocked out in kickboxing, you get knocked out in MMA, but just stand there taking full-on trauma, and then they allow you to get back up to take more if you get up in time. That to me is just ridiculous, because it's like the standing 8 counts in boxing. They do more damage than anything to a guy's career, where MMA, you get dropped from a shot, the guy gets on top, he starts ground and pound, and the fight gets ended right away. So it actually saves the fighter damage by not having 8 counts and stuff. And that's my worry with super boxing as well, because we have that 8 count from the traditional striking, kickboxing and boxing kind of era. And that's my concern there, is that you guys are getting hurt, they're allowed to recover enough to go fight some more, which can be good, but also can be bad as far as total damage that you receive in a match. So that's kind of where I'm at with those type of things. But again, if people want to do it, go for it. I just not my thing, not something I want to risk promoting. But again, I don't think it's gonna. Who knows how long it'll last or what it'll do? But it's not my thing, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in a similar position. It's kind of like if you're an adult and you want to pursue something, and the other person wants to be a part of it too. It's like, have at it. It's like they're just as much in the right doing that, just as you're in the right, not promoting something like that. So it just kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
But interesting you mentioned like the bare knuckle boxing before, like just getting some of those requests. I mean, a couple of things I find interesting with that, just we're talking about like the slap fighting and you're pretty much just standing there and taking trauma. I feel like with like, bare knuckle boxing and bare knuckle MMA, there's certain evidence around it now where it really shows that a lot of more in the MMA context, but it like can lead to a lot more like submission finishes and stuff like that. And there's not that same, rate of brain damage because like the gloves obviously allowing people to strike harder, etc. But also kind of interesting because like there has been, that bare knuckle precedent in Alberta already. And I was actually talking to David Feldman kind of recently about BKFC potentially coming to Alberta, just because I feel like that would probably be the first area they would come into. And yeah, no, he seemed pretty warm on the idea and everything like that. So that could be another cool thing for some of the Lethbridge lads, another card to get in on some BKFC action, possibly.
Yeah, for sure. I think, again, the only thing that's riskier with bare knuckle is more chance of getting cut, more chance of breaking your hands because you don't have that glove protecting your hand when you hit a skull. Again, you can have fully wrapped hands and boxing gloves on, and guys break their hands all the time hitting the skull or hitting an elbow or hitting a hip bone. So, I don't think one's more dangerous than the other, but again, you're hitting a skull with a bare knuckle, your hand's probably going to break. You're also more likely to get cut because you don't have that little bit of padding from the glove. But again, we accept those risks, right? That's what we do. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Just a lot of interesting components here, and something I also kind of found interesting as well, just doing like a bit of backgrounding on you. Like we've done a few interviews, but for some reason I was just noticing that like every win you have, like dating back to 2004, you've been able to close the show out in the first round. Like, do you see that trend continuing through this upcoming fight here and everything? I would think that would be the case, being that it's almost a 2-decade streak going right now.
Yeah, for sure. I'm being older, and you battle through injuries. I don't train to the level the young guys train. So to say I'm going to go 3 rounds or 5 rounds, I'm like, realistically, I don't think I would be able to, conditioning wise. And the way I fight, I know I could fight smarter and safer. I just don't find that entertaining. I just want to go for it. I want to go for the kill, and either you get me or I get you. So it's first, second round, usually by the time that happens. I'm looking for the finish right away, and I want to be entertaining. And, that's what I plot on this show. I want to finish him in under 2 minutes. So, and I'm sure he's thinking the same thing, right? So,
yeah, a lot of ingredients for a very exciting one. I feel like all the fights I've seen of yours have been exciting, though, so not a great surprise if that happens to unfold there. But you've been really great with your time, Lee. It's been great getting some insights from you and everything, but just in wanting to be mindful of your time and the rest of your schedule today, is there maybe anything you'd want to put out there as like a final parting thought as we're wrapping things up here, man?
No, I just really appreciate all the teams and coaches that commit the time and energy to get all their medicals in and all the paperwork they need for the commissions, and and just commit to doing something. And there's a lot of flaky people out there that say they want to fight and then don't, or they waste your time putting their name in, then you mess them, say I got to fight for you, and then oh, I can't fight now. I didn't take time off for work. Well, you kind of map things out a little bit better on your schedule. It's hard on the promoter to juggle everything, but I just accept that's part of the sport. So I really appreciate the teams and the fighters that step up and do everything, being professional in how they go about their business. And I just love the fans and the pay-per-view buys that people do to come to watch the fights, knowing it's going to be entertaining. There's going to be tons of knockouts, tons of finishes. And, I just really appreciate and I'm grateful for the support we have had over the years and for every show. So, and I appreciate you guys that do the coverage of all these events to let people know the results and all that type of stuff after the fights and during the fights. I mean, that's I think that's good for the sport that people could be involved, especially with social media the way it is. So.
Yeah, well, it's such a great Canadian MMA scene, so always fun to follow and cover. And yeah, I mean, Rumble in the Cage, very much a fun show to check out live. So if you're in the Lethbridge area, definitely try to do so, but also very, fun broadcast to watch. I've gone that route as well, so people can check that out either way, regardless of their proximity, February 18th. And yeah, thanks so much for making some time ahead of Rumble in the Cage 64, Lee. You have a good rest of your day, and looking forward to checking out all the fights when they go down too.
You bet. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.